Jay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
All right, welcome into Mvskoke Radio here on KOKL, the Brew, AM 1240, and I am joined today, Jason Salsman here in place of Gary Fife, with Mr. Darren Delaune, and we are getting excited. That was me on acoustic guitar there, Darren Delaune on the flute, of course, and we hope that you enjoyed that little live accompaniment before we started the show today. Darren, man, it's good to be with you here, and we don't get to do this very often.
No, not at all. It's been a couple of years since we got to co-host a radio show, so yeah, missed out a lot.
Yeah, and the views of myself and Darren are not necessarily those of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, of Mvskoke Media, of Stan, of the Brew. I'm going to cover everybody and make sure that they all know that, no, we're going to have fun today, but we're going to cover a lot of great things as well. As Darren and I were on our way over here, we were kind of just talking about the show and kind of setting everything up. We've really got some heavy-hitting stuff today for all you folks out there. If you remember back in the 70s and really late 60s, talking 68, but the formation of the American Indian movement, big deal in Minneapolis, and a lot of the same things we're dealing with now. Bordering towns of Native American communities dealing with law enforcement, things coming up, and what that means as far as the relations and how are we dealing with it. That's what birthed the American Indian movement, and the founder of that was Dennis Banks. They, of course, moved over in the 70s to the Pine Ridge Reservation up there in South Dakota for the Wounded Knee, the occupation of that. Shoot, I bet Stan even remembers that, that whole thing going on in our history and stuff like that. So a big occupation there that everybody followed. So, and of course now dealing with things that he does now, the longest walking across the country to bring awareness to drug abuse and domestic violence in our Native communities. And he's done 5 of these longest walks. This is number 5 dealing with this. And he was just, we were lucky enough that he was coming through Creek Country this week. And Darren, we got some comments with him.
Yeah, that was and unfortunately I couldn't be there. Couldn't be there that day. I had I had another engagement to be at that time, so I had to miss it. It was my I think only my second time to be able to do that. So I was pretty upset about that. Because he's a great guy and be able to talk to, and plus just to listen to him.
He asked about you. He was mad. He was mad that you weren't there.
I don't doubt it.
Well, with a guy like that, Stan being in the business so long, you can probably back me up. A guy like that comes in, and you don't really, structure it. You just kind of say, hey, we're going to let him talk. We're going to give him an open mic, let him go. And this is basically like opening up a textbook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to hear those stories and just be able to kind of let it be unfiltered, really. And that's kind of what we did with the show, and we have that available right now on our online channel. Please visit MvskokeMedia.com. Go to our video section. You can see the entire interview, unedited, just put together just like it is with Dennis Banks. It's really just a conversation. But it's really cool because, he goes into everything from his past and then how that translates and relates to today's time. So it's a neat little interview.
One cool thing I did like about that was he was wearing our Mvskoke Media shirt.
Yeah. Well, shameless self-promotion by us there. But no, it was funny because he came in and I was like, let's not hit him with the swag bag right away. Let's let him do his interview and then we'll get to that later because, we're Mvskoke people. We like to gift. We like to give. If somebody comes and visits us, it's good on us to maybe offer them food. And sometimes it's to offer them, pins, mugs, things like that, T-shirts.
Sunscreen.
Yeah, and one thing about us Creek people, you offer food, hey, you better take it. Insult. It's an insult. Yeah, I love us Creek people. We're like, we came up with a way to never turn down food. You know what I mean? Like, it's our culture. It's our tradition. I can't turn it down. I have to take that slice of pizza. Thank you so much. So that's cool about it. But man, yeah, Darren, I wish you would have been in there. It was pretty neat. But like I said, that's the best part of our online channel, of our new MvskokeMedia.com. You can go on the video section and watch it all as if you had been there. So yeah. And everything going good with you? I think you had a recent column come out, right? The corner.
Oh wow, yeah. Delaune's Corner, another one that came out. It was about my title of it was "Can You Stare at Me for 4 Minutes?" And what it was is how a lot of people nowadays kind of like lose that. I mean, they they love that person, but they really like kind of like lose that. I guess that feeling.
The interpersonalness,
yeah. And so the idea was. They had a group of people like husband and wife, mother, son, brother, sister, and what they did is they had them stare at each other for like 4 minutes.
Man, count me out. I got the worst ADD in the world.
The thing about it was like a lot of them did break eye contact. They just couldn't do it. But it was another great thing about it was that they found what they've lost.
Nice.
In that little bit of that in that 4 minutes of time. So I mean,
going into that column, did you take into account kind of our society at this time has gotten real into phones and tablets and just anything to take our mind off of each other and our focus off of one another as people?
It really did. That was the whole thing about it. I mean, right when I saw that, I thought, I hate to say it, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that look into their phone all the time. And I know that on that one thing was I did that, that little 4 minutes with my daughter. That was like my first experience right there. And it was like it makes everything stronger. It makes your relationship with whoever you want to be just that much stronger.
Yeah, and it's really something to look for in the paper. Darren's column, he's always got something like that to where you can write, and, get really introspective and get something out of it. So it's great that along with our videos, as I said, on MvskokeMedia.com, the all new MvskokeMedia.com, and you can go on there and access all kinds of things. Our paper columns, our paper stories accompanying with video of the stories where we're correlating and doing a lot of the same things. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and get into, though, our first segment, which is the interview with Dennis Banks. And this, again, as I said, let me set this up. This is an interview he came in and gave us for video. It's available right now on our online channel. Just go to MvskokeMedia.com. But this interview here talks a little bit about what he's doing now, what he's done in the past, and really just coming through Creek Country. And we hope you enjoy this interview with American Indian Movement principal founder, Dennis Banks. All right, we're joined now by a co-founder in 1968 of the American Indian Movement, Minneapolis, Minnesota there, and also an author, activist, a lecturer, Mr. Dennis Banks, in studio today. Dennis, thanks so much for being with us here at Mvskoke Media. We love having you.
Oh, great being here. I want to just say one thing first. I am the principal founder of the American Indian Movement.
Right.
I'm the one that went knocking door to door for almost a month and a half. And finally we had several meetings before the actual first meeting took place. George Mitchell, Harold Goodsky, myself, and those were kind of the principal movers behind what was about to happen. We didn't realize how it was going to take off, but it did take off.
Now, these were the streets of Minneapolis there.
Yes.
And you were pulling the neighborhood and people together to fight police brutality.
That was the main reason. It was just bad. I mean, every weekend people would be rounded up and taken to the courts, but they'd be all beaten up when they come out. And then when we started mentioning that, this is about 6 months before the meeting, we started getting complaints, and we had a lot of information before the initial meeting of AIM, and to call say police brutality was one of the worst brutality centers in the world. At least that's the way we felt. We had the information before us already, so we had documentation there. So.
And it's crazy because, we see, that's 1968, we still see instances like just a few weeks ago in Winslow, Arizona, on the border town there of the Navajo Nation with the native woman. Actually, that's made national headlines too.
Terrible.
And still all this time later,
and the guy's record is now coming out where he was brutal in 5 other jobs that he had as a police officer, and he's released each time, and again he's going to be released out of this one, but they should drag him to court. As a matter of fact, I've asked Larry Anderson, who was our point man in AIM on the res, if they would compile some information, maybe a couple of pages of what happened there, and we're going to go to the Justice Department and see if we can get a civil suit going against that guy.
We talk about, too, like, dealing with the same issues now all this time later. What's it been like for you to start up, you know, in 68 and 73, you want to go move over to the Pine Ridge Reservation and things happen there. But what's it been like for you to see how it was then compared to how it is now and what AIM's doing now?
Well, ironically, the same issues about the police, it's still there. As a matter of fact, it's becoming much more subtle and in some cases, a lot more outright brutality, just like what we saw in Winslow. We were there. We were there that morning well, they're not in Winslow, but we were up at Zuni, and we were talking about the brutality of the police. And then this thing was happening as we were in conference there, and then it was we'd moved on up to Shiprock. And then we said, what happened? What? We were right there near Winslow. And the picture across the country, you know, we've become a lot more stronger in terms of action-orientated people. And we see a lot of activity going on, a lot more activity than we did in 1966, 1967. Like people were taking the beatings and not saying anything. And even this walk about domestic violence, it's been there for a long time, years, even years before I was born. And now we see, if we can get it to the surface and start the discussion about it, start talking about it, then it'll start coming out.
Well, that topic there is one that our department has always focused on and worked very closely with our people in the Family Violence Prevention Program. Now we're looking at rooting out the problem within our own people. It's like the ancient ways of thinking that a man could do what he wanted to with his wife or his girlfriend or whatever is being challenged, and many of the young women, the older women in our communities are speaking up, saying they've had enough. They don't want to deal with this anymore. Now, what is the walk calling for in terms of change on the subject of domestic violence?
Well, first of all, I'd like to, you know what, when I used to go to the movies, even the silent movies, there was a lot of slapping going on with the women, men slapping women. James Cagney and a lot of other leading heroes of the time slapping their wives, slapping their women. And so we were being almost programmed that like that was all right. And so what I'd like to see happening, and we're formulating it now, is to see when this first happens, and see if we can have a family court, and so that so some counseling can come about right away between the perpetrator and the victim. See if before it goes to sentencing, and see if we can get them back together, and both of them go through counseling, and with the understanding to the perpetrator that if this doesn't work, then we will go ahead with the sentencing part of this. And then this means you're going to jail. I hate to see especially a family man or family break up and then there's children involved. Then the father they can't see his children can't see the father. And in rare cases, it is the female also has been a perpetrator. So I would like to see that happen first before once the person goes to prison, then inevitably it'll break up the family.
The longest walk started, as activism. You start looking at the 11 bills that were pending at the time, and then you move on to everything from diabetes awareness to sacred sites, which tied you close for our own very Mvskoke Creek Nation and what we're dealing with from Ogiabova, our hickory ground.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that's been for you each walk, but also, having that connection with us as Mvskoke Creek Nation with what's going on in Alabama?
Yeah, of course the Peltier Walk drew a lot of attention. We did 2 walks already for Peltier. The president, the closest hope we had was Bill Clinton. And then things started to unravel for Bill Clinton. I mean, the FBI was on his case. And I think that there was some sort of a deal struck where, hey, look, don't bother me, and I won't release Peltier. I think that was the exchange there, because there was a lot of, we did a lot of concentration with Clinton administration. We met Janet Reno. I met with her, and she said we've been getting a lot of calls, a lot of telephone calls, a lot of emails and letters. Dennis, she said we're looking at it very seriously. So, and then things happened, and then Peltier was still in there. So after 40-some years now, he's still in there, and we hope Obama again will give another close shot at it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up President Obama. I was going to ask you about the possibilities of a release for Peltier, but also the job that he's been doing with tribal governments. He's drawing them closer to the White House than had ever been done before, at least publicly. So what do you think of the job that Obama's done as far as relations with Native American people?
I think they've been good. I think they've been great in some places, and I think exceptional in other areas as well. Of course, the Democrats feel that he's sold out. But once you become a president, you gotta, if you want to go along, you gotta get along in there. And it's the same old. I mean, I think the worst president of the United States has been Andrew Jackson, and I hear they're talking about taking him off the $20 bill. And I've always said, for many, many years, I've said, this is the worst president the United States ever had with Native people. So. But I see, he's been very close to Native people. He received an Indian name up there in Crow Country. He's visited many reservations and came to Pine Ridge. He's been to, I think he was up here in El Reno too, visiting a tribe up here before he went to the
Choctaws.
Yeah, before he went over to El Reno. I think that his scorecard is good, very, very good in terms of relationships with Native people. But I think there's still, like we hope, we're getting mixed signals. We're getting signals from the White House that he's asked questions about Peltier, and so when he starts asking questions about it, then we know that even when he was a senator, of course, he received information about Peltier then. I don't know. He's really our last hope to bring him home. I sat in a federal appeals court, 10th Circuit Court, in 8th Circuit rather, when the judge asked the prosecutor, the same prosecutor who said that Peltier aimed his rifle and shot Williams, and then Kohler and then Williams in cold blood. And the judge asked the same prosecutor 16 years later, what hard evidence that you have that Peltier killed the agents? And the prosecutor said, Your Honor, we don't know who killed the agents. And the judge became angry. He said, no, wait a minute. He's started looking around here, and he pulls up a file. He said, you said 16 years ago Peltier shot Kohler in cold blood and then Williams. And now you tell us that you don't know who killed the agents? He said, there's something wrong with those statements. And anyway, and we thought for sure that Peltier would be released. But they said on a technicality that should have been raised at the time that he spoke those words. And since he didn't hear no objection, they thought that was it. But we felt that he should have been released. So, and there was the whole trial is filled with a lot of fabrication that the FBI did with Myrtle Poorbear. She had 3 affidavits that they wanted her to sign. One of them was to get Peltier extradited back from Canada. They used three affidavits. The first one was she submitted wasn't strong enough. Went back, and they said you got to tighten it up a little bit more. That one wasn't good. And the third one, they finally had to accept it. She said she saw Peltier kill the agents. That's what gave Canada, they extradited him then.
Now, the issue of freedom for Peltier has kind of been one of the mainstays of the American Indian movement over the decades. It's always been in the forefront of the activities and things that you wanted to see happen for Native people. With this Longest Walk 5, we're seeing focus on drugs and domestic violence, as we've discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an article that talked about this walk and a phrase that said, the economics of survival is the cause for drug abuse. Now, is that something you agree with, or you would explain, or would you disagree with that statement?
I think it has a lot to do with the violence. When a man loses his job, and he's not the breadwinner anymore, and then they have to go on welfare. The woman goes to applies for welfare and gets it, and all of a sudden, the role has changed. He's no longer the breadwinner, and so he goes out and things happen. He might start drinking, comes home, gets mad, and he's terribly upset because it seems like he's lost his authority as the breadwinner, and things begin to happen. And I know that there, on this walk, men have been talking to us, women have been talking to us about the violence. Generation after generation, they saw violence in their home. And the men now, we've had 4 men. One of them broke down crying, saying, yes, I've beaten my wife. I've beaten her 3-4 times. He says, and only because, I feel ashamed. I'm not working anymore, and I just, my children don't. It seems like I've lost respect for my my children. To me, the economic picture in this country has caused some of that to happen. Not all of it, of course. Whereas the people with jobs still are involved with domestic violence. So it's a hard call on domestic violence, especially if there's been generation of violence. One woman, when I went to her home, she's had a sign. It says, a big sign in her home says, I stayed with my husband so that my children could have a father. And I left my husband so that my children could have a mother. And that didn't hold true for my granddaughter. And she died a very violent death. And not only violent, but the mutilation of her body, and the guy trying to destroy her whole body with propane, with gasoline, and with using the styrofoam plates, crushed them all up, put them on her body, and then torched her. That becomes like napalm when it's burning. Tried to destroy, almost did destroy her entire body, except that the way that they put her in that in that grave, shallow grave, they had to double up her body, and so she had some intestines. They got the DNA from the intestines that still hadn't burned, but the rest of her body was just. I think he should, and now he's the district attorney. They've struck a deal with him. It was against our wishes. We wanted it to go to the grand jury, but I don't know why they didn't. I'm still gonna, when I'm going back on May 3rd for one of the hearings, I'm still gonna object to him making a deal. He doesn't deserve to make a deal, and I don't know why they're even making a deal with him to begin with. But the whole thing about domestic violence is a hard call, and
Well, let me ask you this. Is the tactic of a walk across the country going to be effective in curbing that violence, in bringing it more to the forefront for our own people to deal with? In some cases, somebody might say, well, that's part of our dirty laundry kind of thing.
I think it's Gary. I think it's gonna be the beginning of at least discussions coming to the table. I think there's going to be more of that. I talked to a judge in Minnesota just recently. As a matter of fact, in the last week, who had called me about a man who's possibly going to prison. And he asked me, the judge asked me, he said, is there any program, Dennis, that we have available? He says, because I've talked to him and his wife, he says, and they want to try and keep the marriage together. So people are talking about it, and I think once we start talking about it, there's two thoughts, as I said. I want to try and get it into a counseling situation first, and then if not, then understanding if it happens again, then somebody's got to understand that if they keep doing this, then it becomes a crime, a very hard criminal act.
All right, there you have it, Mr. Dennis Banks, the principal founder of the American Indian Movement, stopping off in Creek Country this week. Nice enough and gracious enough to give us a little bit of his time for that interview there, and we hope you folks enjoyed it. That's just a small piece of the interview. You can see the actual entirety of that on MvskokeMedia.com right now. Go to the video section and see it there. Also, we've got a lot of other things up on the site for you all. If you just go on and make a day of it, visit our site, look around, see all the things that it has to offer. The all-new MvskokeMedia.com will have just a little bit of everything for you, including radio segments, Gary Fife, who's normally sitting in this chair, and TV segments from myself, Native News Today, as well as columns from Darren, and also news pieces as well, articles in that you will find the Muskogee Nation News. So moving on to our second segment, now that we got that over with, we are now joined in studio by the Muskogee Creek Nation Secretary of the Interior, Mr. Christopher Azbill. Thank you for being here today, Chris. We appreciate it, man.
Hey, appreciate it, and I'm glad you guys had me on today.
Well, you know what? You're becoming a veteran of these type of things. I know you like to work a lot more and get things done a lot more than talk. But thankful for us, you allow yourself to come and humor us every now and again. But Chris, a lot of things going on right now. We wanted to talk with you about. Number one is just the work that you've come in and started doing as the Secretary of the Interior. I know you've been really busy, but there's a lot of things that are kind of A1 on your list, and one of them, as we look right over here through the window, the council house. I think you've got some really positive things that have been moving forward. I've even spoke with Chief Floyd about some of those positive developments. Talk a little bit about that and where we're at as far as maybe getting it to a status where we can work with something.
Sure. I don't know if most people out there know, but the construction documents, we've had an architectural firm on staff for quite a while. The architectural construction documents are 99% complete. And at this point, for the month of May, we're going to have a bill for a funding for phase one of the council house, $1.8 million. And so that'll be phase one. We actually have 3 phases. Phase 2 and phase 3 can actually be one, depending on how you want to look at that. But the idea was that we didn't want the nation to incur a huge expense all at one time.
Right.
And so the phase one will be coming down. I'm hoping the National Council, if they're listening, this is huge for downtown Okmulgee, as for the Okmulgee Rising phenomenon that's going on downtown, and we need to do our part too.
Yeah,
So
you're seeing things pop up around it too. We're getting new places of business around, just around the exterior of the council house, and like you said, it's time for that great monumental place here in downtown to rise up and be what it is, as far as an attraction to go along with all that's going on in downtown.
Well, exactly, and Chief Floyd, he's been out the last couple of days with a back injury, and his back's been killing him. But before he went on this little sabbatical, we talked last Thursday about putting together some conceptual drawings on the visitor center, which will be across the street.
Right.
Chief Floyd really embraces history, architecture, and he likes to return things the way they were in the 1880s. And one of the things that he's talking about is bringing back the brick pavers around the council house. That would be super neat.
Yeah.
And one of the other things we have coming down the pipe is the ICDBG grant, which is the Indian Community Development Block Grant. That's through the USDA, and possibility of using those funds to start the visitor center.
Yeah.
And so we may have two projects going on at the same time.
Very cool, very cool, and getting access in those areas and in that structure from maybe some federal grant monies and things like that, right? I mean, is that
The ICDBG grant is $800,000.
Yeah.
For this year, we put together a new planning department that will. They only do regular planning, but they also have a grant function. And this year we try to streamline the entire ICDBG process so that everybody has an opportunity to submit their application, just a one-page deal, and then the Chief Floyd will gather those applications, and we will look at the most viable project, one that's most needed with the biggest benefit to Creek Nation. He decides on it, and then it's a done deal. No infighting, no arguing, no indecisions about who's going to get it. We go for it, and the next year, the next person in line, if that project hasn't been completed, we'll go with that.
Good deal.
And just move forward. So
Yeah, and right now the structure itself, safe, events, anything like that. What are we at? Where are we out there?
we don't advertise for allowing people to do events in there. If they come up, we do allow people to have small events. Creek citizens, part of the transfer of the property whenever the nation took it over in 2010, part of the deed restriction was that we have to allow nonprofits and other eleemosynary organizations in this town to use the lawn for free. And so, we're always going to be tied to the community with the building. It's, it's the heartbeat of downtown. So, I think we had a little event in there last Saturday, and
Well, that's good too. I mean, with the weather being like it is, springtime, getting into summer, have some stuff on the lawn anyway, and really just don't worry about going inside or anything. I mean, if you have things on the lawn, and you can really market, events out there around it. That's a pretty neat thing. I think people can flock to that more, and you
Right.
kind of take care of two things with two birds, one stone deal there. The Museum Association too. I mean, I'm sure they have a hand in this, but they've kind of been under like a sort of a shift in structure as well. I mean, can you talk about that and,
Sure,
and what
yeah.
they're doing right now?
Yeah, for years and years and years, the Creek Indian Memorial Association, also known as the Creek Council House Museum Association, basically ran the council house from I think 1924 up until 2010. They were a very viable entity, and they did a lot of good. And towards the end there, when the nation took it over, they kind of started dying on the vine a little bit. Some of their funding sources had shriveled up a little bit.
Right.
But we went to them. We had a great relationship with their board, all the people in the community that were a part of that. And Judge Moore, Pat Moore, retired district court judge from Creek Nation, he and I went together and we actually took over the CIMA. It's going to be a nonprofit that we'll use as a fundraising arm for the council house, not only the council house, but the country club,
Yeah.
any historic properties that we have, we'll use that as a fundraising capital campaign. You can go right through that. We can go out and get grants. We can get grants from the Gerson Foundation through, a number of different nonprofits out there. So,
Staying on the country club, because it's something that everybody talks about and everything like that, as well as other stuff we could talk with you about. But the country club, we had talked with you in previous interviews, and there had seemed to be some underlying planning, nothing concrete or anything like that, but just some base layer planning, maybe, and some looks to the future with it. Can you share anything like that with us?
Yeah, I get it. It's so weird. I get a question about the country club, multiple questions about it every day.
Yeah.
I called a lady and was just asking about a water bill downtown, and she works for the city. And she's like, "Well, my daughter plays golf. I'd really like for you guys to get that open." And so, so it's really funny.
Come on, Creek Nation. There's people needing to play golf.
Well, exactly. And that's a nice segue into in some of our planning, because one of the things we're going to do is, one was we met with the state historic preservation officer. We're going to put the building on the National Historic Register.
Great.
And people think, well, you're going to have a lot of restrictions associated with that. Yes, but you can also embrace the historic tax credits that can be used for the building. That's 40%. So now a non-viable project becomes viable, because we can sell those. So we've actually worked with One Fire on that. And we're actually going to turn the course back into a 9-hole. We have a proposal right now to recreate the course the way it was when Perry Maxwell designed it. And Perry Maxwell designed that course, and if you guys don't know who Perry Maxwell is, he was a famous golf course designer who designed Southern Hills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's
it's a historic property. It really is.
Yeah, and and also historic property, registering it and having it officially deemed as such almost makes it like an endangered species too, man. Kind of hard to touch and a little bit easier to help out. You know what I mean?
That rolls into my question too, Chris. When you mentioned that it has the possible restrictions, could you talk about what restrictions it's going to have? I mean, if it's going to be in this registry.
Sure. I mean, anytime you put something on the National Historic Register, there's you as the owner, you're doing that for a reason. There's restrictions in terms of you just going in there and bulldozing it down, or tearing all the facade off and putting metal on the outside, or some drastic change to the building. The National Historic Register is basically prevents you from, it's amazing, the facade. So they want to maintain the integrity, the look of the building on the outside. And so, but we want to embrace that. The historic credits, they go through the State Historic Preservation Office, and all those designs and everything are certified by them before you do the work. And there is a little bit of increase in cost to putting things back into the way they were before, but it doesn't equivalent to 40%. The other thing I would like to say is, talking about the girl that I called earlier today, her daughter wanted to play golf out there. And
I do too.
And Darren, you guys probably like to play golf all the time. But, but I'm thinking, why do we need to go to Fountainhead? We can have our golf tournaments right here for our festival. This is But there's a thing called Top Golf, or not Top Golf, but First Tee, the First Tee program. And it's a nonprofit. They come in, they can support some of your operational costs to subsidize those, as long as you're willing to work with the community to allow free golf, free access to the course, and maybe even work with the city about maybe subsidizing some of the costs on the water and the sewer costs, if we can offer that as a free to the schools in Okmulgee County.
Is that a USGA program?
I don't know.
It sounds like it. I mean, I'd have to do some research on that. But if it is, they're solid about building those type of relationships and things like that. The track record is there to be able to do a community-based golf program type of thing. So, yeah, it's all there. What about the relationship you and I talked about a few weeks ago? And not to rehash, but just for those listening on Mvskoke Radio that may have not seen our interview, which is still available on the website if you want to go there and see that. But BIA and the relationship there. I mean, I know that you had said that maybe, I don't know if you said strained, but I mean, it was something that you guys needed to look at and to be addressed. Yeah. Kind of where we're at right now. Yeah. Because there are some things we're having to do with the BIA right now that can muddy that up.
Yeah, anytime you can improve your relationships with a federal agency that has some level of authority over the tribe, I think that's very important. Eddie Streeter, the regional director, literally the first week we reached out to him and said, hey, I don't know what was going on before, but we're not operating like that. We want to operate in a very transparent, open manner. And if there's things we want to negotiate in terms of the self-governance, things that we want to take over, that's all negotiable things, and they're okay with that. The Cherokee Nation has a different setup than we do, but under our setup, we're bringing back the bureau at the agency level. They're going to help our realty department.
Right.
They're going to help that backlog on all those probates that we can't get through realty. Literally 2 or 3 year
Backed up,
backload.
yeah.
And we really have worked on that and addressed that. And that's actually affecting people's lives. And a lot of the other things that we worry about at Creek Nation really does not have a direct effect on people's lives. And when I came in, I wanted to make sure that everything that I did, I try to fly under the radar, literally to the nth degree, because I want to have my actions speak louder than my words. And I just try to make a positive effect every day at work and try to embrace the things that are going to affect people's lives, and improving the relations with the Bureau was probably the number one thing.
Well, we apologize for hurting your efforts to do that, Chris, by keep asking you to be in our interviews and things like that. But no, but more so, we appreciate the hard work that you are putting forward. We know you're hustling. What about Fountainhead, Chris? Anything you've heard, plans, anything like that? I mean, I know the big thing has always been, right? You and I talk on a regular basis off the record, things like that. I mean, there's no way to look at that area and not see the possibilities, and even if it's in trust, things like that, and what we could do there. Fountainhead was something that was this incredible thing when it was first brought into that Eufaula area, and I think that Eufaula, lake area and Fountainhead State Park, people still flock every summer, and it's just I think it's something that could just blow up. What do you think?
I agree 100%, and I don't want to tip my hand too much on this, but I will say this, that
can we have an exclusive here?
Yeah, well, actually, this is an exclusive.
Yeah, okay.
We're on the cusp of having our full 100% trust application submitted to the Bureau for the first time ever on the Fountainhead property.
Wonderful, man.
So you think
that is great.
Can't remember exactly what date we bought the property, but it was not managed in a good way. I'll put it like that.
Okay.
What we did is we went out, we identified an individual that has a lot of respect from the federal agency in terms of his trust applications.
Okay.
There's no point reinventing the wheel and trying to do something that you may not be familiar with, because this is the first gaming application that the tribe has ever done for trust gaming application.
Uh-huh.
We're in new territory,
Yeah.
and so he's got it. He's reviewing it. Should have something by this Friday, and then once that goes through, then the other part is the Army Corps of Engineer and property, to transfer that property, and that's we're going to have some developments and some announcements on that soon.
What you talked about, the management, there's a difference I think you can say in between mismanagement and maybe just unmanagement. Was this a case of it just kind of sat there really with no focus or direction? Just in your opinion.
I just think that they some things didn't come to fruition. They had hired some big time lobbyists. I think the J.C. Watts group. I think their first approach was to kind of the Hail Mary approach, that they were just going to put this in as a legislative rider and transfer the Army Corps of Engineer property and the Fountainhead property all at one time and get it in for gaming, and then it's slam dunk. Well, it just never came to fruition.
Right.
I think you got to have these things both going at the same time.
Yeah.
And if something happens where you're able to get a clearance through a legislative rider or something, where it affects both properties, great. But you really got to focus on the Army Corps of Engineer property separate from the trust application property. Right. And
Army Corps of Engineers, that's a whole new ball game, because Chris, you and I know this. I mean, you cut down a tree, that's what, $100 or something. Right. I mean, I don't know what the going rate is, but they are for real when you're on their territory and things like that. So there's things to answer to. There's things you have to. You can't just go and do something. There's got to be 100 X's and O's done and all that kind of stuff. So, Chris, anything else you want to bring up before we let you get out of here that we should know about, or to keep on the radar?
I would just like to say, there's a lot of positive things going on at Creek Nation. A ton of positive things, and this new administration, we're working through a lot of the issues. And we're building on the things that were good from the previous 4 years, right, and the things that were not so good. We're recreating those, managing them in a better way. And I think over the next 6-8 months, you're going to see a huge effect in the way that the nation operates. And just proud to be a part of this administration. Mm-hmm. And Chief Floyd is just a class act, and I think he's really coming into his own right now, and really being going to see a lot of positive things coming from him in the next few months. So
And you know, I think his back issues might come from having to carry the weight of the world on it right now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The guy's got a lot of responsibility, and you got to respect the standing in there and doing the job. Chris, thanks so much for stopping by with us today, giving some valuable stuff out there. And I know the citizens are glad to hear a lot of the things you're saying. And keep up the great work. And we appreciate you taking a little bit of time out for us.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks,
Thanks
Darren.
again, Chris.
Jason.
Well, hey, Darren, let's take a quick break real quick. Stan, let's get a break going. Let's come back, and we'll get you all up to date on tribal community news, everything you need to know about what's going on, and get it on your calendar. So you are listening to Mvskoke Radio here on KOKL, AM 1240, The Brew. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back and close the show.
Nearly 22 million women and girls and nearly 1.6 million men and boys have been raped in their lifetime, probably by someone they know. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, confidential support is only a phone call away. Contact the Mvskoke Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention Program at 918-732-7869 and ask to speak to an advocate. Services are free and open to the general public.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of Hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry. And I think, I like who I am. And I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
And welcome back to Mvskoke Radio on AM 1240, The Brew here in downtown Altmulgee as we get ready to close the show for today. Darren, Delaune over there, and myself, Jason Salsman, want to thank you all for sitting with us and going over all the stuff that Mvskoke Radio has to offer this morning, and forgive us for not being Gary Fife. I wish I had that Gary Fife voice, you know what I mean? Dadgummit, you know, I'm so envious. I have voice envy. But it's nice, though, because right now, you know, Gary doesn't have his voice.
No.
He's a little bit under the weather.
Yes.
So for me, it's kind of like, all right, you know, I pulled the Ursula on him, you know, the Little Mermaid. I took his voice out of him, and you know, I used it to my advantage. So no, that did not happen. For people out there that take me too seriously, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Darren, last night, a lot of things happening with the weather. We actually had a full-on weather report on Indian time on MvskokeMedia.com, and that's our daily live stream for you folks that, you know, in the afternoon want to see what's going on throughout the day. But Darren, you actually not only are a columnist, a part-time radio host, a part-time native news producer, you're also a storm chaser with our own James Nichols, who heads up our emergency management department at Creek Nation. He's got a team. You're on that team, and you guys were out and about last night. Tell us about what all happened.
Well, yeah, James wanted to start off. You know, we had the storms, and at first, you know, all it was they're suspecting was just rain, you know, heavy wind, and
Yep.
And so he took off, wanted to head up to towards the Seminole area because of the storms it was more brewing that way.
Yeah.
Than kind of like over here.
Yeah.
And
thanks a lot, Rocky Mountains.
Yeah. Eventually, when we got there, when we got to Seminole, we got a call say, hey, keep an eye out for this one storm because that's going to be heading towards Altmulgee. So, you know, we waited there for a little bit. We were keeping up with the live stream with Mvskoke Creek Nation Emergency Management. I mean, we were just talking, keeping everybody updated. And we ended up following that storm into Henrietta. And on that way, I mean, we're doing maybe 35, 40 miles an hour. I mean, that water just like flooding the I-40. I think we were the only ones on the road at that time. I mean, it was getting that bad.
Wow.
And
Goodness.
hail started. So he decided to make that decision to go ahead and just wait there, just wait it out, And sure enough, it died down and started moving on, and we called the Morgan County Emergency Management. I mean, there's a lot more that happened too. I'm just giving you this summary. Yeah. They pretty much gave us the all clear. We're going to head back here to Okmulgee. Drop me off. I was going to head on home. We get a call a little bit after 11. Go, did you get a confirmation of a touchdown of a tornado in Shakota? We go, no. And when we looked on the radar, there was a little tornado warning that came on the radar. And then we started getting the confirmations like something like that would happen. So we make that little, we start making our little calls, and we're making our calls. We have our siren lights going on, and we're heading to Shakota. Yeah. And, right then, as soon as we got there, the incident command post was at the Shakota football field. Numerous firefighters were there, volunteer firefighters from several little communities around that area. Light horse, emergency management crews, they were all there ready to get the grids. They were wanting to assess the damage, but also there was at least 40 storm shelters that they were needed to check. And so that's what all these guys, they had them split up into certain areas. I mean, in a time of chaos like that, I'm not going to say that, there's different types of chaos. It was very well organized. I was very impressed. Good. Just to see all that. And, they were, you could see, they were nervous, but they were calm. They showed that calmness. Yeah. And it was amazing just watching.
Yeah, that comes with experience in those kind of situations. And I just got to say, as a Eufaula guy, I need to let you know that it was definitely a microburst in Shakota because there are no touchdowns in Shakota. All right.
That's Jason Salsman that said that. I did not say that.
No, hey, you can take the boy out the rivalry, but you ain't never gonna take that rivalry out the boy. The oldest rivalry in Oklahoma. It started over the county seat, and by George, we kept it going over anything we could find, color, of our uniforms, anything. So, all right. Well,
can I mention something real quick about the safe room?
Please, Sam.
This story came out yesterday, and I didn't know this, and I have a safe room. I have a really nice one that's good for like 8 people. If you have a safe room and you haven't registered it, you need to get it registered. And the reason why is because you could be in it, and if a car gets slung on it and your door's pinned all of a sudden and you can't get out, they're not going to know you're in there.
Yeah.
But if you're registered, they know you got a safe room. You'll be one of the people they check on. So
they need one of those. They need one of those little porta potty dials where it goes to occupied. People. This is a PSA right now. You need to use those. I've walked in too many people in the porta potty, and it's like that thing's there for a reason, lady.
Yeah. And Stan has a real good point. The reason why I say that is because there was a picture that I took of last night. It was right by the First Baptist Church. There's power lines down.
Yeah.
And but across the street, and Channel 6 used this as well. There was a tree that was uprooted. It was leaning against a house. Right beside that tree, when uprooted, was a storm shelter.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So fortunately, I don't think there was anybody in there at that time. There was nobody in that house. But it lifted up. That storm shelter. Whenever it uprooted, that tree did that. That's how powerful that was. Right. So that was just a heads up on that. What happened last night?
Wow. Well, we got to get everybody. It's storm season. It's going to happen. So everybody keep up with us on that, and we'll have all that information as it becomes available and when it's needed. Okay, getting into the news. This weekend, a basketball showcase going on April 29th, 30th at the Mvskoke Dome in Okmulgee. Freshmen and graduating seniors, there'll be a $20 fee. The College of St. Mary's will be there with a scholarship available. So if you want a scholarship, want to play college basketball, come down to the Dome this weekend, show them what you got. Text or call 918-652-5405 for more information. And it's sponsored by the Dog Soldiers for Jesus Christ Sports Ministry.
Mvskoke Creek Tribal Town Citizen Fundraiser will be this Saturday, May 14th at 11. It'll be at the Alabama Crosarty Community Building. That's on Highway 27, northwest of Wetumpka. The lunch sale starts at 11, and the bingo starts at 12:30.
Mvskoke Creek Nation Family Violence Prevention and the Children and Family Services Administration are collaborating to host a guest speaker. Ginger Lewis, renowned speaker, and telling a little bit about her story, comes on Thursday, May 5th, 2016, from 1 to 4 in the Mound Building. And she, for more information on this event, contact Crystal Polk at 732-7979 for Ginger Lewis.
Next one, we got Movies in the Dome is coming back on May 5th at 6:30. Activities will begin at 6 p.m. free admission. The movie for that one is going to be Inside Out.
Darren's shirt when he's had stayed up too late and came to work the next day.
My apologies.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
For more information, please contact 918-758-1930.
Language Council meeting coming up Friday, May 6th at the Okie Indian Community. It'll start at 9 o'clock and go to 2. The directions are west on I-40, west of Okemah to exit 217, north 48 Highway past Castle, north past East 1030 Road, IXL as we all know it, right? On the right. You're invited to help us identify trees in the Muskogee language. That's kind of cool. Friday, May 6th. All right, go ahead.
National Day to Prevent Teen Pregnancy Awareness event will be Wednesday, May 4th at the Clyde Cox Omniplex Dome. The come and go event is at 3:30 to 6. For more information, please contact Rachel Sauerjohn at 918-304-7802.
All right. The Mvskoke Creek Nation Scholarship Foundation Program presents Stride for Education 5K Run and Fun Run Walk. Saturday, May 14th. Registration will start at 7. Entry fee will be $20 for the walk and $25 for the run. Register online at www.strideforeducation2016.eventbrite.com or call Jennifer Killian at 918-732-7763. Excited about Striding for Education.
You know, on top of that, we always run on the treadmill. I think we're always racing each other on that. We need to step it up a little bit. We need to try and do that.
Can you do the 5K?
Yeah, I think so, Jason.
You go ahead. I'll do the fun walk. All right. Muskogee Nation News featuring graduates in the upcoming June 1st edition of the Muskogee Nation News. That's a big edition always. Very, and for good reason. People want to see their loved ones in a big accomplishment in their life, whether it be college, high school, anything. So submissions should include your full name. Profiles will be edited, and recent digital photos should be included. Email no later than Friday, May 13th at 5 p.m. Friday, May 13th, 5 p.m. No late profiles will be accepted. So if you want to be in that paper, you want to see your loved one in there about their graduation, get it in. Friday, May 13th, 5 p.m. Full name, a graduate, where they're from, parents, ceremonial ground, all of the normal things that you see in those profiles, and a recent digital photo.
Graduation announcements and senior photography. For more information on that, please visit MuskogeeMedia.com or call us at 918-732-7720. We cannot stress this. The order deadline is April 29th. That is this Friday.
All right. And everybody out there, school clothing program, still taking applications. You may apply May 2nd through December 31st of this year. So it's coming up. If you want to get all your kids ready for school clothing for the next school year, I know it's never too early to plan that. So this school year ain't even over, but you're going to want it. So go ahead and sign up for that. You can go over to the Actually, you get your application by calling 732-7600. Visit the Creek Nation website.
The MCN Junior Ball Challenge, April 30th, from 9 a.m. to 2 at the Tulsa Expo Square Pavilion. It is a free event. Come watch over 500 students showcase their robots.
All right. And we also want to let you folks know the festival's coming up. It's going to be here before we know it. The last weekend in June, actually middle of June, starts out with some competitions in the beginning of June with the Creek Nation Scholarship Pageant. So keep that on your radar. Keep up on the website, MuskogeeMedia.com, as well as the Creek Nation homepage, mcn-nsn.gov, and creekfestival.com. That website, too, will have all the information, all the wins and wheres, and the people that you need to call to get involved in those activities. Darren, I want to thank you for being here with me today. It's been fun. And Stan, man, it's awesome. Always having Stan here on the board.
Buddy.
Does a great job, and, just a legend. So, it's a
Not
nice.
a legend.
Well, whenever we play other stuff, I sit here and get pointers from him. You know what I mean? I try to sit here and absorb all of his knowledge through osmosis.
He's like Yoda.
Right, exactly. I wish he would start talking like that.
Yeah, when you start talking like Yoda,
a break we have to take.
I can only do Jabba the Hutt.
Get back here. Get that chain tightened up. All right. Well, guys, of course, we're going to have a good time here. We want to make it entertaining as well as informative. So want to thank everybody for joining us in. I want to thank Gary Fife for making sure that this has such a good base and solid listening foundation that everybody out there can get some great information on the tribe. And want to point you again to MuskogeeMedia.com to keep up with all the things we have going on and all the coverage that we're providing to our citizens there on that outlet. For Darren, Delaune, and Jason Salsman, this has been Mvskoke Radio. We'll see you next time.
been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates.
On the air, on your phone, and online is classic hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s on 1240 The Brew. 1240 KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.